Hopping on a modern jet and getting to London in 35 minutes flat. One of the best-known names in post-war aviation in the islands was that of Wing Commander Maurice Pickford, who had a distinguished career in the Royal Air Force before becoming a civilian pilot running his own business. Later, he spent 20 years as an instructor at the Channel Island Aero Club. Now he's emigrating from his home in Jersey to South Africa. In the late 40s, Pick owned a Miles Aerovan, well known for its ability to fly into Guernsey Airport when others couldn't. I spoke to him about the early days.
Oh yes, I mean that was how I started. Gave me a wonderful start because Guernsey was waterlogged. And it was, 6 inches of mud at least. And I could get out and not tip up on my nose, whereas the Rapides and DACs that were flying at the time, they just couldn't cope. It got me off to a very good start indeed.
How did you secure that contract, for instance, to bring the papers, which you did, didn't you?
Well, British Air Transport, they got on to me as soon as they found I could get out of Guernsey and get back in again, and said, you know, will you ferry the newspapers from Jersey? And I was only too happy to do that at a cut rate. And as soon as they found, ordinary people found that there was an aeroplane flying in and out of Guernsey, then of course I was starting to get quite busy carrying passengers as well as the newspapers.
Did you also approach BEA, which was a new company, wasn't it?
Yeah. They weren't interested. They didn't want to fly with what they thought was a one-horse charter operator. And they wouldn't give me any business at all, although I offered them the ordinary agent's commission, you know. But I used to get the passengers anyhow, because if I was over here and an aeroplane came in from the mainland, then I said we used to stand at the entrance where passengers came in and say the aeroplane's leaving for Guernsey in 10 minutes. And on one occasion, I remember an elderly lady, the weather was bad and I couldn't get over, and she waited 2 days for me rather than go on the boat.
That's got to be the earliest form of Laker Skytrain I've ever heard of. What about incidents with the Aerovan? I mean, you obviously had a great affection for the Aerovan.
Oh yes, it was a wonderful aeroplane. The trouble was that it used to blow over in a wind. The undercut was very narrow, and it was a high wing, and it had an enormously deep fuselage. It was, I forget exactly what the headroom was, about 6'10", you know, but it was very deep. And of course, if you were turning across a strong wind, the thing simply blew over. And it used to give me more anxious moments on the ground than it ever did in the air.
Now, what about in the middle of the 1950s, 55, 56? What happened to you then?
Well, I was working for Jane D. Norman Limited, as a sort of builder's representative, generally going around and being Jack Norman's eyes and ears in Guernsey. And I went down to the Chalet Hotel, hopefully to sell some paint, which I didn't. And John Ibbotson, who was the son of the then proprietors, said, come in and have a cup of coffee, you know. And so I went in and had a cup of coffee. And, well, there's a wonderful job right up your street going in Jersey. The Aero Club have just got rid of their instructor, and they haven't got anybody, and it would be just the job for you. And he flew me across. He had an old proctor at the time, and flew me across here, and I had an interview with the members of the committee, and gave Jack Norman a month's notice, and came over here beginning of May 56.
What was the state of the club in May 1956?
Well, the spirit was wonderful, but the strength was a bit weak. If I remember rightly, we had 144 members. I had to, I was instructor, secretary, barman, manager, general factotum. And the first year, I remember, we did 183 hours. We only had one aeroplane, of course, the old Oster. And that broke all records. I've always loved flying, getting off the ground into the air. And, you know, it's wonderful, I think. And then, of course, being able to teach people and to get somebody green as grass who doesn't know an aileron from an elevator and gradually see them take shape and then do a good solo and go on from there and eventually pass all their tests and everything, you know. And also, it was initiating somebody who knew nothing about it usually into something which I loved doing and which they enjoyed doing as well. You know, it's great. I've been very lucky.
Yeah. What about, you must have a fund of stories, but what about a typical story of having, having a student up in the air?
Well, of course, the classic one, which was a bit dodgy, happened before the war when I was with Blackburn Aircraft. And we were training on a little thing called a Blackburn B2, which was a side-by-side, fortunately. And I was teaching this particular student rolls, slow roll, which is very slow indeed if you do it properly. And of course, you actually go upside down. You know you're upside down. And I'd warned him, tighten your straps and pull them really tight, and follow the controls with me. And I just got nicely upside down, and he fell out of the seat about that far, just taking up the slack in his strap, and got hold of the stick, and I couldn't shift it. Nothing at all. And I had to, come on, let go, And then, fortunately, we had a Gosport tube, a speaking tube, a short one, just plugged into the end. And I unplugged it and hit him across the face at the second attempt, and he went like that and let go. But that was tricky at the time,
One of the early flyers, Maurice Pickford.